All right, we're back for another edition of the Astro Weather. I am your Astro Weatherman, Robert Phoenix. Thanks for being here. And also, thank you for being flexible and patient with the time today. So, anyway, how is everyone? It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in disaster land. By the way, it seems like the disaster is beginning to wind down just a bit. We still have a lot of earth clearing machinery, the big backhoes. What else? The first responders are still around. They're still looking for people, right? They're still looking for the missing, the few missing people that are still unaccounted for. Although I think there's probably been a fair amount recovered. And now comes time to rebuild this place, and it's not a town that is blessed or graced with a lot of vision. Let's put it that way. I would say that the visionary scale is low here in Kerrville. It's not a town that's blessed with a lot of artistic and creative types. I mean, they're here, right? But you just don't get a sense that that's really important in this part of the world. The river was important. The river was the centerpiece. It was the sort of jewel of the city. And it became a bit of a death trap. Anyway, let's see who's here. Let's see who we got in the house. In his house. All right. We definitely have Cardinal TV today with the cats. All right, here we go. Susan, hi, Susan. Grand Rising too. There's Tom. Thank you, Tom. Hit the like and subscribe if you feel so moved to do so. Josie's Jazzy Junk. She's here with us. Garden hose, no gloves. I think of the air. Okay. Major Tom. All right. There we go. Regina Levette. Hello, Regina, coming in from North Carolina. Let's see who else we have. Stephanie Hunter. Hi, Stephanie. Debisu. I had a crown with a 2, but stepped away. It's gone. Puff. Dethroned. Let's see. Who else we have? Janice is here. Privacy anti-scum. OG Satoshi is going to auction his old computer, which was scrambled to burn the Bitcoin on it. Well, I'm sure some Bitcoinaire will bid heavily on that and put it up on his wall where it all started. Soul Traveler, happy birthday to Nick. There we go. Privacy Anti-Scum. His name is Bryce Wiener. He has a token related to this, but I really don't understand. Okay. Sigurd, what's happening, Sigurd? Good to see you. How are you feeling about your new privacy laws coming to your town? Ain't Keir Starmer a charmer? Is that what you guys call him? Starmer the charmer? Well, it's not far from happening here. Let's see. Lena Winkler, cornfields are sweating in Illinois. I love that corn sweat. Love that corn sweat. Thor at the door. What's going on, Steve? Privacy anti-scam. Neil Smith, the most interesting man in Wisconsin. Carolyn Moore, from the smoke of the north descending here already for the day. Sun can't break through. It's breaking through here. Bright and shiny. I hope the computer proves who he really is. Oh, the Satoshi thing? I am Satoshi. But you didn't know that. Let's see. Donna Eve, is he late? I was. Sorry about that. Joan S., the lovely and talented one. Yes, Robert will be on. Thank you, Joan. Lady Lou's here. Brandy Herrera, Laura E., Sharon Lewis. He likes to give us time to chat and warm up. That's right. Steve, I love your perspective. That is just an absolutely graceful reframe. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Donna Eve, I'm usually here on the button. Let's see. It is a chatty morning, isn't it? Hey, Dave Sullivan's back. He's been up since around midnight. Sounds like a jazz song to me. Let's see. Now I need to take a nap. I understand that. Totally. Devin Dewar, she's back in San Antonio from her beach tour. Welcome back, Double D. Let's see. It's 11 a.m. here in New Zealand. That's a commitment, Donna. I mean, I really feel I have to come through since you're up that late. Let's see. Who else do we have? Yeah, it's when, hey, Nighty Cups. Peas and butter. I love peas and butter. Benito Diaz, what's going on, Brother D? Rats boo. Rats boo. Mark S. There is. You had a good chat. I'm glad. I could see there was some quality chatting going on while I was away. I appreciate that. Tom, thank you, Tom. Readings alive and available. Call now. Let's see. Christine Mose. She is. Well, it's not, but Robert, Texans are better in the fall. That's usually my season anyway. Yes, hit that like and subscribe if you're there. Just do it. Do it. I hope you're feeling better. Well, it's going to be an interesting journey to health, as they say. Yours truly went to the doctors yesterday. You know what it was? It was one of those, hey, you're mortal kind of visits. That's what it was. Baby, what's happening, baby? Sandra Wells. Thank you, Sandra. Christina Maria. She's here. Scrubby's doing the shouts. The shout outs. Holly Beth, Amy Gill. Let's see. Bitcoin member, kill me now, right? Exactly. Still feeling that South Node transit on my Mars. It's not been fun. I can tell you that right now. Right now. So, Robert, how are you doing? Well, under current circumstances, well, I'm doing just fine. Terror Freak, what's happening? I've been at peace with the UK's dystopian destiny since I was about 5, so it's no big deal. Man, that's coming to terms with the future, isn't it? I was really coming to terms with the future. Good on you. Let's see. We're all just about caught up. Put dandelion tea. I've been drinking it. I've been drinking that dandelion tea. It's pretty good, actually. I'm about to have some this morning. You read my mind. Juicing. Yeah. I have a juicer. I have one of the original, like, Juice Man juicers. Still fucking works. It's a beast. All right. Why don't we get into the weather? Let's do that. Into the weather. Yeah. No, that's not it. That's not it. Let's see. Ba, 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 ba. I have this song in my head, which is Space Age Sacrifice by Sammy Hagar. I don't know if you guys have seen this viral video that Sammy Hagar, he did this this song back in the 70s called There's a Crack in the World. And it's gone pretty viral on the internet. The lyrics, I read them on the Sunday night show, are pretty mind-blowing. You know, there is something really interesting about Sammy Hagar. Like when I used to listen to him growing up, there's always kind of an interesting, like, kind of sci-fi side to Sammy. Like it wasn't always there, but it kind of was. Like, oh yeah, this is interesting. This guy's kind of tapped into something. Sammy's a Libra, and both he and DLR Libras holding down the fort for Van. I like Sammy better. That's only because I'm prejudiced and knew him from other bands. Anyway, if you haven't checked out the Crack in the World video, I highly recommend it because it is pretty trippy. Yeah, and I don't know who discovered like the lyrics on it. It's been a long time since I've heard that song, and it's like, wow, Sammy's tapped into something. Anyway, let's get into the weather here. All right, so on Sunday night we talked about this Promethean Mercury and the sun sort of way out in front here now. Mercury's getting ready to station. It'll stop and station at 4 degrees. And then once she moves forward, then it's like turning the Titanic around in the middle of the ocean. I really feel like, you know, if we look at what happened with Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson through this Mercury retrograde opposing Pluto. To me, it's a clear example of that in action. Because first of all, number one, what Tucker and in some ways, more ways than Tucker, Nick did is they both went into the past, right? And I rewatched the segment with Tucker and Candace about Nick Owens, and it wasn't Nick Fuentes. It wasn't just more than just passing. It wasn't just in passing. Like they spent an inordinate amount of time, maybe 2-3 minutes, on trying to. And Tucker's very funny this way. He'll always be complimentary. Like he'll say, well, he's clearly talented, like a native talent. Like I've been around this business for a long time, and not everybody can do what he does, et cetera, et cetera. And so he'll go there and he'll kind of grease the wheels. And then for the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes, they're both, ganging up on him. And I think part of it had to do with this Dave Smith thing and how loyal they are to Dave Smith. Like Dave Smith's a big boy. He can settle his own beefs with Nick Fuentes. And then I think the mistake Tucker made was calling him a creepy little gay fed living in his mother's basement. I think that's where he crossed the line. And I've been watching reaction videos to the Fuentes, the takedown of Tucker. And I mean, it's pretty unanimous that, Tucker suffered third-degree burns in this. And it feels to me like it's that Mercury retrograde and opposing Pluto, and really bringing kind of, light to the fire or fire to the darkness. And in a lot of ways, I mean, this is what Fuentes did. I mean, he was like stealing fire from the gods, and the gods being Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I mean, these are people with massive followings, people who have cultivated trust and a degree of bond with their followers, listeners, etc., and have spent a considerable amount of time doing that, right? And then for this to happen this quickly, with the amount of incineration that went on, is kind of mind-blowing, really. And I just wonder how Tucker is going to recover from this absolutely excoriating 2.5 hours. And it's not just Tucker. It's J.D. Vance. It's Palantir, Peter Thiel. I mean, there's a lot of the players just get put under the magnifying glass and get, fried like ants. And if you're Tucker, do you just walk away from it and not address it and just try to move on, which I've seen people do with Fuentes? Or do you have the audacity to have him on the show? Tucker was really great with Ted Cruz. no doubt. I'm not sure how he would be with Nick Fuentes. And let me give you an analogy as to why, in most cases, Nick Fuentes, or let's just take Nick Fuentes, the personality, out of the picture. Somebody like Nick Fuentes. And the reason why, in most cases, a person who is wired like Fuentes will win in almost any debate against any person is that Tucker, for all of his intelligence, experience, and acumen, has to operate within a certain sort of boundary, right? Like in the Vietnam War, they called it the rules of engagement. So the U.S. Army could only operate within 50 miles on one side of the Mekong Delta. I mean, there are all these things that they couldn't do. So Tucker has handcuffs. Like he can't say certain things that Nick could say. Nick, on the other hand, could go anywhere and say anything. He's not fettered by the contingencies of so-called politically correct speech. And so it's like you have one person who's at a street fight and they have everything available to them. Broken glass, blackjack, knife, maybe if they need to, they've got a 22 with a couple of rounds, right? They're kind of loaded. They've got more tools. And the other person might have, let's say, a blackjack. And that's about it, right? So that's why it'd be difficult to debate Nick Fuentes, because the playing field isn't the same. One side is dealing with the rules of engagement that society generally has kind of agreed upon for the most part. And the other person doesn't give a fuck, right? Can say anything. So when you have that as a setup for any kind of verbal interaction, the person who generally has the most tools at their disposal is going to win. It's just the way it is, right? And so what we did see over the weekend was this very Promethean moment where it was like Fuentes went into the realm of Carlson and Owens and stole fire from the gods. And it happened just like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is. Just in terms of this general aspect here with the sun, now we're really separating. We're at a wide kind of opposition, and then tomorrow, the sun. I'm sorry, conjunction. The sun won't even be in conjunction with Mercury, right? The sun's going to be kind of on its own, a bit of a free agent, even though there are some other things going on with it. As it gets closer to Virgo, it looks like we're moving. Well, not really. That's Mercury. That is Mercury. Yeah, it feels like the sun starting tomorrow. It's a free agent. I feel like you're going to see behavior from people that are, I wouldn't always call it shocking with Leo, but it's definitely this willing to stand up for their individuality, uh, I think it's an interesting transit. I do think it's an interesting transit because it's also connected to this philosophical decan, which is the Sagittarius decan. So actions are not just taken because there's some degree of ego gratification. There's something higher here. There's like a higher drive. There's a higher will to self-actualize and activate. So if you have to stand alone for whatever reason, let's say you have to come to the defense of somebody, or let's say you're the lone person in your I don't know, group at work or something like that, and you have to stand alone. This is actually a good time to do that, especially if you understand that you're coming from a place of truth and not ego. Because in the second decan of Leo, that's where you're operating from. So this is kind of the next few days are all about character and building your character and willing to stand up for things that you in your heart of hearts know to be true, even though you may not be getting the support from other people that you are looking for. So anyway, have courage, have faith, do the right thing. We have the moon in Sagittarius, and it is coming to its frolicking end as it conjuncts the galactic center down here. And we're going to be moving into a 48-hour period of the moon in Capricorn. Happy, happy, joy, joy. And immediately it's going to oppose Venus and it's going to oppose Jupiter. And the two of them, they're not quite together, but, they're fairly close, right? 6 degrees. Venus-Jupiter conjunctions are nice, except that sometimes they make you feel more of something, right? And right now, I would say that the Venus-Jupiter conjunction is kind of crabby. It is kind of crabby. Have patience with people in relationship. There's a high degree of sensitivity here with this Venus-Jupiter conjunction. And then when we have the moon moving into opposition and swinging in there and opposing Venus, and it's just so formal, right? There's kind of a formality that really shouldn't exist. Not with Venus-Jupiter. Venus-Jupiter just feels like, hey, come on over for dinner. Let's have a barbecue or something like that, right? But it's not consistent with the season. You got the Venus-Saturn square, Venus-Mars square. You got a bit of almost a grand cross coming in here. Cardinal grand cross coming into play. As it's not impossible to have an invitation with a Venus-Saturn square, but it's a small and select group. I can tell you that. To me, this Venus-Mars square, which has just been dogging us for a while, it's volatility. We sometimes we ask ourselves, how do these aspects play out in our health? I certainly do. And for me, the Venus-Mars square it's like an astringent, it's like it's high acid. It's not very pH. There's a taciturn quality to relationships. And Even when Mars moves into Libra, we're still going to be, it'll be even more intense when Mars moves into Libra. So relationships are really, really, really touchy. I feel like no matter what you do, the best of intentions are gonna they're gonna kind of fall short. It just feels like nobody's really going to be that happy. Which is here's my advice to you. Let's say you have like a nice plate of food you fix somebody, or you're kind of going out of your way to be nice to someone, and they may not be as reciprocal. Don't sweat it, right? Don't sweat it. Like don't try not to take it personally, because it's just the aspects right now. And when we get that moon coming in and squaring Neptune and Saturn, and it just feels like what's the word I'm looking for? Put upon. Like people have such little bandwidth that they feel put upon by even the smallest request or gesture of kindness. Like why are you doing this? What's the motivation? There's not a lot of trust in the sky or starting tomorrow. And this next 24 hours is going to be a real challenge. Real challenge. We got this Cardinal Grand Cross territory. It reminds me in a lot of ways of back when it was like 2011, when there was Saturn in Libra, Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn, and Jupiter in Cancer. 2013, that was the time of this massive Cardinal Grand Cross. And it was a pretty volatile time. I mean, that's when WikiLeaks was starting to come out. And that's when the whole operation in Iraq started to unravel. So this Grand Cross is kind of getting into that territory a little bit. Mars is playing the role of Saturn. Of course, Jupiter is playing the role of Jupiter. The moon is playing the role of Pluto. And then Neptune, Saturn are playing the role of Uranus, which was in Aries. And some of those cables were really shocking, especially because Uranus and Aries had to deal with war, right? And I wonder what kind of information is going to be leaked over the next 48 hours as it relates to things like war plans. What kind of smoke signals are we going to get here over the next 48 hours? I don't know how many of you realize this, but when we had that earthquake last week, and it was in Kamchatka, it focused on all these Russian submarines. Now, I know that they have more submarines than that, but that base kind of got wiped out. And it reminds me of a time where there was something going on with the US and Russia had this major submarine downed. I think it was 2018, something like that, 2019. And then there was this massive earthquake, and it was out near like 29 Palms. I remember watching the Summer League in the NBA, and they had the earthquake in Las Vegas. And it turns out that the center of the earthquake was this base that they have out in 29 Palms, and they actually have submarines there. And you would think, well, submarines in the desert, that's kind of crazy, but they created like an entire sort of channel for those submarines to dock and then descend and eventually head towards the Pacific Ocean. So it's not like we haven't had earthquake and submarine action damage. It's been happening for a while, but this would be the latest iteration of it. So the complexity, getting us back to this Grand Cross, the complexity of it, there's just irritability, Moon Mars square. I mean, come on. And the Moon in Capricorn, which is super officious, right? And it's almost like, ordering people around with that Venus opposition. And I think there's also kind of a conflation of one's own emotional values with the Moon in Capricorn. So watch out for people who think they have more power than they actually do. Okay, this is a prime sort of petty tyrannous sort of period of time. I think a lot of patience is going to be tested here. Now, let me just say this. As I bring this up, right? As I bring it up, I don't always subscribe to being passive. Like, there are times where if she's going to blow, she's going to blow. Okay. And if that's going to happen, just make it count. Make it count and try not to be too hysterical as a result of that. We still have that Pluto Mercury opposition. God, there was this text yesterday, series of texts. Let me see if I can bring the characters in. You may know some of them. You may not know most of them. Hell, you may not even care. But it was this guy, Gilly the Kid, who is some kind of rapper mascot for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Cam Newton, who used to play quarterback for the Carolina Panthers and was pretty good. I mean, Cam had an MVP season, went to the Super Bowl, and then he kind of got goofy, became a vegan, had a bunch of baby mamas. But Cam is very eccentric. So he's been doing the alternative media thing. So then there's Cam Newton, then there's Jay-Z, and then there's Johnny Manziel, and then there's Nicki Minaj, and they are going at it in a 5-way tweet about like one another's manhood and what happened here and who stole money from there. And I mean, it is fucking just crazy. It's crazy. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's no self-control. I mean, these people are really, really going at it in terms of their diss text and like hardcore. And they don't just write lines. They'll do videos. Like they will do like a 2-minute video and they'll be and they'll have things going off in the background. And I'm like, is this the new art form? Is this the hate collage we're practicing at the end of time here? But this is what I'm referring to with the Grand Cross. People are just pulled in. They don't have a lot of filter. We got the sun in the Promethean position. And are we in line for like a whole litany of apologies? Depends. Depends on, who says something that's considered to be politically incorrect and the force and the pressure they must have in order to get back in the good graces of whomever, right? There's a lot of tension. There is, keep your eyes on Cincinnati. This is not a situation that has been resolved. Like, it is getting weirder. If you're not familiar with Cincinnati, there was a jazz festival there over the weekend, and there was a Russian guy who was beefing with one of the Cincinnati bros, and I think a Russian guy didn't get the memo that you don't drop the N-bomb when there's about 10 other brothers around, right? You probably don't drop the N-bomb unless you're absolutely liberated in terms of free speech. But he does, and then they're kind of jawing, and the Russian guy does something that he shouldn't do. And he takes his open hand and he hits this guy in the face. He doesn't hit him hard. But if you're going to strike a man, if you're a man out there and you're going to strike a man, you better make that first hit about as devastating as it can be. You don't go for the head slap. Even though you may be Russian and bulky, you don't go for the head slap unless you have like 15-inch hands and they're full of callus and you've got tree trunk forearms. Then maybe the head slap might have some impact. But if you're in that situation and you're going to cross that line, you may as well bloody the guy's nose. I mean, that's your biggest bang for your buck, right? It gets the blood flowing, it shocks him, tears to the eyes. There's always a kind of a step back moment when you do that. And when you get that step back moment, you move in, take him down, and do whatever you want to do, right? But he didn't do that. And so what happened is that this guy starts fighting back, and then about 9 others start fighting back. And the next thing you know, we got ourselves a bebop beatdown in Cincinnati. So then the guy's wife, she gets the shit beat out of her. And she's got all these bruises and she looks horrible. And then there's the fallout and how the councilwoman said that they deserved it. And it's just a weird and unsettled situation. It's kind of like, somebody's been wounded and the wound has not closed. So keep your eye on Cincinnati as a place where some of this stuff gets it gets certainly talked about and maybe more exposed. Another weird thing about Cincinnati is you have this big fight that's there, right, during this jazz festival. And Lonnie Anderson of WKRP Cincinnati passed away. So it's weird, right? We live in this weird kind of synchromistic world. And I think Lonnie Anderson is one of those birthday deaths. Let me see. Lonnie Anderson. All right, American actress. Yeah, I mean, she was trying to get to the birthday. Born August 5th. She's got that Leo hair, doesn't she? Died August 3rd. So she didn't quite make it, but she was definitely one of those birthday deaths. Well, she was a sex symbol for a while, wasn't she? I know there were other people that liked, what was her name? PJ, the weather girl, or whoever she was. She was pretty cute too. But Lonnie was the bombshell. And her marriage to Burt Reynolds killed him partially. Whenever you see like the two of them together, like not that happy. Like, look at this photo. Do you think he looks happy? No. He doesn't look happy at all. Well, Burt was bisexual. So he doesn't look happy there. I think maybe she cut in on his Jim Neighbors time, but he's never happy. I mean, does he look happy there? No, he looks aggressive. Does he look happy there? No, not really. They're not even really looking at each other, right? Now, the reason why he wasn't really happy with her is because she spent a shit ton of his money. She spent a lot of his money. Look, he's not even happy here. There's no joy in his face. He's not even looking at her half the time. This might be the happiest they get here. Stood by Burt Reynolds. He was bedridden for 2 years, taking up to 50 pain pills a day. Well, she helped cause it. Lonnie was a spending freak. She was a spending freak. That's what she was. And Burt had a hard time with that. And so what's he do? He goes out and starts banging the local waitress, Pam. Notice that most women named Pam are psychic. Do you have any friends named Pam? Almost every Pam I've ever met is psychic. All right, strap it up, kids. We do have a grand trine here. Mars, Uranus, Pluto. We talked about this on Sunday night. Like, yeah, you can get creative here, right? Creative resolution to conflict. Just make sure if you're going to take it on, do it with the consent of all the parties involved. But if I were you, I'd get into the creative potential of this grand trine. Mars in Libra is actually really good for fitness and athletics, believe it or not. So if you wanted to jump back in on that train, I would go ahead and do it, but I'd start slowly. Don't overdo it. Not with that Mars-Neptune opposition. You don't want to get really ramped up and pull a muscle, or deal with some kind of deeper fatigue issue, right? But this grand trine would be good to get your motor driving, head out on the highway, looking for adventure and whatever comes your way. There you go. The Astro Weather. Be careful out there. There's some turbulence. there's some turbulence. If you get sucked into it and you got to go there, just go there. It's okay. Make it memorable. All right. So our True Hemp Science star of the day, very interesting star of the day right here. And let me throw the banner up. Do some bannerism. And the True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than Neil Armstrong. And Neil Armstrong is one of the most enigmatic characters in American history. And the name Armstrong has like a triple connotation. And the first time we really encounter the name Armstrong is with this radio character called Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. And he's like this All-American boy who's strong. He is like, he doesn't have Superman strength, but he's strong. And he has this gal pal and this dog. And these are all radio plays. And he winds up going through all these misadventures. I think there was an accompanying like pulp novel that went along with it. So the idea that Armstrong, it's so funny too, because it's one of those names that seems to be like redemptive. Wasn't there an Armstrong? Was it? Let me just see this. Hold on. Yeah. So George Armstrong Custer, right? So even like General Custer has Armstrong as this middle name. And it feels almost like culturally redemptive in some ways, because you have Jack Armstrong, the All-American boy. Then you have Neil Armstrong, who really is the All-American boy. Like, I thought about this. It's like, what was it like for, growing up Neil Armstrong in this, kind of podunk town in Ohio? And I saw pictures of him as like a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout. Like, Neil Armstrong was the all-American dude. And he's a Leo, right? And he's got that kind of sort of sun-kissed, sun-blessed sort of, Apollo. Isn't that interesting, right? Like, he's part of the Apollo moon flights, and Apollo is a sun god. And of course, Neil Armstrong happens to be a Leo. There's a lot of very interesting synchronicities with Neil Armstrong's chart. And he has this life that's very unusual, like he becomes the first man to walk on the moon. And then all those guys who come back, Buzz Aldrin is still around. I don't know about Michael Collins, but Neil Armstrong passed away a couple of years ago. And none of them were ever ebullient or happy. Like, I think Buzz played it off as kind of something real, but a bit of a game. But Neil Armstrong could never do that. And because Michael Collins went mad, and he did, he went mad. He was the guy that was supposedly circling the moon, right? But I'm not sure he went mad because he was circling the moon. I I think he had a hard time representing the situation. Whereas Neil Armstrong just kind of kept going, right? Like he kept just riding on the coattails of this supposed journey. And it takes him, I believe, what was he, a congressman or senator for a long time, right? And so Neil Armstrong winds up living this life of kind of privilege in a lot of ways because of his status. But doesn't it feel like he didn't get as much out of it as possible? Like if you're the first man on the moon and you have this background of being this all-American guy, you would think that you could just, rev it up and go all the way to the White House or something like that. But let's take a look at his chart. What I find interesting is he's got the sun in the fourth house. Well, that's Cancer's house, right? That is the home of the moon. And of course, he is the captain of the Apollo spacecraft. Isn't that interesting? He has Venus and Jupiter conjunct in Cancer in the third house. Well, that's interesting. Movement, travel. Okay. Right. Him and two other people like going to the moon. But are they really? Right? Are they really going to the moon? We have Jupiter-Saturn square right there. And also we have a Venus-Mars square. So there's a lot of tension around this idea of actually going to the moon. And his team, 11th house, he's got the true node in Pisces. So he's going to be the team leader. But what's he really talking about? Like, what kind of details does Neil Armstrong give? Not a lot. He just doesn't really talk about the moon stuff. Now, what's interesting is he has the moon in Sagittarius, and it is the highest part of his chart. So it's a point of aspiration. The moon in Sagittarius is travel, right? I mean, it's generally the nature of it, but it's in the eighth house. So it's very secret. Like there are secrets about that moon that aren't necessarily being revealed. And we go over here, and what do we have? Right? He's got that Neptune square as well. Check him out. He's almost got that Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. Wow. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's for him today. What am I looking at here today? My bad. Hold on. My bad. Yours truly needs to rewrite. It didn't seem right. Well, this fucking chart looks like today. This is what happens when you are putting together the show after going to the doctors. Okay, let's do this. Like, what the fuck? That's not him. All right, hold on. It's like, that looks too much like today's fucking chart. All right, here we go. Okay. August 5th. I believe 1930, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. I'll make sure here. Neil Armstrong. I do think it's interesting that he is a Leo, and he is the head of the Apollo spacecraft. Okay, here we go. So 8:5:30, and it's 12:31 a.m. And it's a weird place. But now it's changed. They changed the birth location. Okay, let's stop sharing that. So the birth location is 12:31 a.m. Washington, Ohio. That's weird. Okay. Where are we? Let's go back to the original birthplace. Yeah. I don't know why it's not showing up. I'll be happy when Mercury retrograde. So you can always blame it on Mercury retrograde. Can't we? Here, let's see. Washington Mills, Washingtonville. That's not right. That ain't right. Neil Armstrong. All right. He's born in Wapakoneta. See, that's different. Wapakoneta. I just grew up in Wapakoneta. Wapakoneta. There we go. There we go. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's not entirely different. Robert gets to skate a little here. All right, so here we go. Let me throw in some planets. And thank you for putting up with this, but I think it'll be interesting as we get there. All right. No, that's not what I want. I want that. Here we go. All right, here we go. It's not, oh, the fuck. We are definitely having a Mercury retrograde moment here. Definitely having a Mercury retrograde moment. All right, one more time. This should do it. This should nail it. Ta-da! All right. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. So here we go. This is the chart right here. So we still have the sun in the fourth house, right? That's the moon's house. That's a lunar house, and he has the sun down there. And of course, he is the captain of the Apollo. I think this chart's a bit more interesting too, because here we have this Mercury-Neptune conjunction. And like the idea that we have of Neil Armstrong bouncing around the surface of the moon, I look at that conjunction and I wonder how much of it he actually remembers. That's one of my takeaways here. How much does he remember? Like, has he had memories of being on the moon implanted in him with that Mercury Neptune conjunction? Or can he just maintain a really, really good lie? You know, as we look at this chart, which is slightly different, we have Gemini rising and Mars in the first house, which is travel. And Gemini is the previous program that sort of clears the way for Apollo, right? That the Mercury flight, who I believe is John Glenn, who winds up getting into politics as well. And then they have the Gemini flights, and I think Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom are part of the Gemini flights, like two men in space, right? And then I think they maybe do one more Gemini, and then they're off into Apollo. So Gemini is the precursor for Apollo, and he's got Mars in the first house. So one of the things that, like, they didn't just bring Neil Armstrong off the street to say, "Hey, do you want to be an astronaut?" No, he's a pilot, right? All those guys were pilots. And if you saw the movie The Right Stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I feel like Mars and Gemini in the first house is legit. The guy's a pilot, and he has a sextile to the sun, and he has a sextile to Uranus. So he's going to be a different kind of pilot. He is going to be Phaeton, right? Piloting his craft, his solar craft, the Apollo, across the heavens from the Earth to the moon. And now we're getting into some interesting territory. The moon is still in Sagittarius, right? And that's like the high point of the moon. But just above the moon, this is where it gets a little bit different here than the last chart, is Saturn, right? And he's got Saturn in the 8th house. Now, Saturn's the father, but it's also authority figures, right? And to me, it's kind of like, how would I describe this? I would not be surprised if Neil Armstrong was a Freemason, and that Saturn in the 8th house is like the lodge elder, or having to have a vow of silence, right? Like you just can't cross that threshold. And for the most part, the people at NASA in the early days, well, they were Masons. So I would not be surprised if Neil Armstrong was a Mason, and definitely sworn to secrecy, for sure. Now you can see where he's got this trine going on with Mercury and Neptune with the moon, and Mercury's travel. And Neptune again is like, is it real? Is it imaginary? I think it might have been, I don't know. How do you reconcile your life as Neil Armstrong? It's just a weird kind of dynamic in a lot of ways. He's got Aquarius on his midheaven. So, traveling to space, being a space cadet, leaving the atmosphere theoretically, that's all up there. But there's a heavy Capricorn influence in his chart. Neil Armstrong is guided. He's guided. And I would not be surprised if his father was like a lodge member or something like that as well. He's got that Mars-Uranus trine. There's always something kind of cold, like not, I wouldn't say cold, but something, there was kind of a remote quality to Neil Armstrong. Again, I mean, if you think about it, this guy could have been, he could have written his ticket, like being a senator or congressman or whatever he was probably a reward for his post lunar life. But if this was true, if he had really gone to the moon, he could have written his ticket for the rest of his life. And maybe it's because other Apollo flights followed. I just don't think he got as much mileage out of it. I mean, think of it. How many times have we theoretically been back to the moon since then? It's been a while, and really, if at all, right? So maybe he was just content to live with the anonymity of the sun in the fourth. He has Chiron in Taurus in the 12th. And to me, that's almost like somebody in a gravitational field. You know, they're not really grounded. They're not really, in some ways, of this earth. They don't feel like they have a body. And then he's got that square with the sun. You know, if you go back and you look at Neil Armstrong's life, one filled with a number of accomplishments, I don't necessarily feel like any of them really helped him. But I don't feel like by going to the moon, it didn't make him a more popular and embodied earthling. I don't think that's the case at all. If anything, it brought up probably more of his alienation. And what's interesting is that, you know, the true node is in Aries. So there's kind of a pioneer model to it, right? But it's in the 12th house. And the 12th house can be any number of things, you know. Maybe it's the surface of another planet, but maybe it's also a soundstage. You know, it's a place where people just don't go, right? They just don't go. This is a pretty complex chart in a lot of ways. And his choice of, what was his marriage like? Like, he'd have to marry the right person in order for her to deal with the fallout of the, I wouldn't call it PTSD, more like LTSD. He also has Jupiter in Cancer in the second. I mean, it feels to me like that's kind of where he's a made man, a bit of a made man. He doesn't have to buy another meal in his life with Jupiter in the second. It's an interesting chart. But I do feel like there is an issue with some conscience here. The Venus Moon square, the Venus Mars square, not quite in a T square. The Jupiter Saturn opposition, what's being handed to him, what's being given to him, what he's being told to do and execute on, and Jupiter being the reward for that. And even the Jupiter-Uranus square, like, you know, like kind of, it's weird. It's like he's kind of ahead of his time in some ways. Like, let's say, for instance, Neil Armstrong lands on the moon in 1980, just what, 11 years later. Do you understand what kind of celebrity he would be? I mean, first of all, we'd have all this kind of worldwide global television, satellite TV kicking in. And it would be like even more ubiquitous than it was. I think had he done it in the early 80s, Neil Armstrong he is Apollo, right? But instead we get, these strange black and white photos with things look like strings and wires, and it just doesn't really look very good. They could have taken care of a lot of that technologically. But, Kennedy said, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. So I guess Nixon held up his end of the bargain. All right. If you haven't noticed that this is a segment for True Hemp Science, let me just reiterate that. True Hemp Science, so you get these stickers when you order, and you can give them to your kid, and they can put them on their binder when they go to school. Do kids even still have binders anymore? I don't think they do. They have pads, don't they? The binder is a thing of the past. The binder was a beautiful thing. You could dazzle up your binder. Every year you're kind of looking, hey, what's my binder look going to be like this year? I remember one year was lime green. It was the lime green binder. They had the denim. Remember the denim binders? Remember those? Anyway, you can get these stickers and more. You get a goodie bag. You spend $100 or more at True Hemp Science, and you'll get the good stuff. You'll get deep, penetrating CBD with elements of THC, which makes the medicine so much better. So much better. And with your goodie bag, you'll get a bunch of stuff, a bunch of good stuff. It's like Christmas and then Christmas. And then $150 gets you a 30-day money back guarantee. There you go, truehempscience.com. All right. Thanks for being here. You see, now that I have to go do a show, I can stretch out a little bit here, a little bit longer. It's nice, right? Am I right? It's nice for some of you want to hang out and talk more astrology. I tell you what, why don't we do this? Tomorrow we'll have similar format, and why don't we dedicate maybe the last 20 minutes of the show to your questions. You don't have to come on and talk. I'll just go through chat. You can ask me about certain astrological questions that you are thinking about, or maybe they're pertaining to your life. So why don't we do that? We'll do a little tag on segment here called Ask Robert. And we won't do it every day. We'll do it a couple days a week. Maybe we'll do it every Wednesday. Ask Robert Wednesday. There you go. All right. Thanks for being here. For those of you still here, God bless you. Thanks for being patient. Take care of yourselves. Treat each other well. God bless. And bye for now. For now, I will be back. Take care.